podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, will you get that message that says this content is not available in your location? A Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services, while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Friday. It is the 2nd of August. And it's all very, very quiet. There is nothing going on. There are some reports of teams beginning negotiations for players, but nothing is really happening, bar pre-season friendlies, which I genuinely couldn't be bothered with. And to be honest, for the first time since I started doing this podcast, which was for the 2021 season, I'm struggling to find enough content to make podcasts out of, which is really strange. 2021, no issue. 21-22, no issue. 22-23, no issue. And 23-24, no issue. Rarely was there a day where I felt like I was really stretching to find content or putting up very short pods like yesterday because there's just nothing going on. So what I'm going to do today is just fill time with a little game. So this was suggested to me by somebody, and for the life of me, I can't remember who, but it was suggested a couple of weeks ago as just something to fill time. And then it came up yesterday, which is why I'm going to do it, when I saw West Ham and Crystal Palace fans arguing over what a combined 11 would look like between them. Now, given they finished 9th and 10th in the Premier League, 3 points apart, West Ham fans making claims that only 1 or 2 Palace players would get into their team is utterly laughable. Utterly laughable. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make combined 11s. Now, I'm going to go first versus second, third versus fourth, fifth versus sixth, etc., 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 all the way down. 18th, 19th, and 20th from last season are gone, obviously. Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United. So we're going to take the teams that have been promoted and replace them. So the team who won the championship, being Leicester, will come in place of 18th place Luton, and we'll do a combined 11 between them and 17th place Forest. And then 19th is Ipswich, 20th is Southampton. We'll have a combined 11 for them. Folks, the barrel has been scraped, and now I have flipped it over and I'm looking at the bottom of it to see if there's anything there. So that's what we've got today. It'll be a bit of fun, though. So we'll start at the top. We're going to have 10 teams in total. We'll do 5, take a break, do the other 5, and then it'll be news and gossip, and we'll be out the gap. So, first versus second, Manchester City versus Arsenal. Goalkeeper. This is tough. Ederson is better with his feet. I think they're about even in terms of shot stopping. I think Ederson sweeps the line better, but Raya is a lot better on dealing with crosses and such. He's a more commanding goalkeeper. To his credit, he's actually excellent at claiming crosses, dominating the aerials. So he does have a legitimate case here. But with Ederson, we've got a lot more track record at the high end. So I'm going to start with Ederson as the goalkeeper. Right back. So we have Kyle Walker versus Ben White. 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been close. It would have been Walker. Not that he was ever great, but he was good to very good when he had elite level pace because he could make up for a lot of things and he could cover for others. He doesn't have the elite level pace. Now, he's still very quick, obviously. Ben White's a better passer of the ball. Ben White is more versatile. And while I'm no fan of Ben White and think claims that he's the best right back in the league while not being the best right back in North London and possibly not even the best right back in his own club, I do think Ben White at this point is better than Kyle Walker. Left back. Gvardiol. I assume it will be Calafiori. I think Josko is the better version of the same player. I think they're very, very similar in what they're good at. Now, Calafiori is a little bit taller. Gvardiol's a little bit more powerful. They're both excellent ball carriers. They're both good to very good defenders. Calafiori's better in the air. But as a passer of the football, while Calafiori is good, I think Gvardiol is excellent. So I'm going to go with Josko Gvardiol at left back. Left side centre back is Nathan Ake versus Gabriel. I think Gabriel is the better of the two Arsenal centre backs, but I do also think that Ake at this point is probably slightly better than Diaz in the City backline. I think there's more to Ake's game. I think he's less error prone. I think he's less hot-headed. Now, Gabriel does add more of a threat from set pieces and such, but I do think it's probably Nathan Ake just about. Diaz versus Saliba. Saliba looks the part. He's the aesthetically pleasing centre-back. And I would imagine a lot of people would say Saliba because they look at the aesthetic. In the same way, there was many foolish people that for many years tried to claim that Riyad Mahrez was as good as Mo Salah or better than Mo Salah, despite not being anywhere close to Mo Salah. But aesthetically, he looked more pleasing on the eye. Now, Saliba has a major weakness, which is he's very poor in the air. But so does Diaz, which is that he tends to commit himself to challenges and blocks and leave himself prone on the floor while players run past him. I'm going to go Saliba by a hair, but it is very close. Midfield, Rodri is the best defensive midfielder. It's not even close. The question is, what type of midfield am I playing around him? Now, both teams do play 4-3-3. Based on what Arsenal look to be doing this summer, I think Rice is going to end up as the left-sided one. But he was bought to play as the defensive midfielder. So I'm not really sure. I look at the City midfield, and when Bernardo Silva plays next to Rodri, I just don't see anything better than that. So I'm going to go Bernardo as the partner for him. It's still KDB over Odegaard. That, to me, isn't particularly close. And Odegaard's excellent, but KDB is still a genius. Right wing, I'm going to go Bukayo Saka over Phil Foden. I know Foden won Footballer of the Year. I'm going with Bukayo Saka. Left wing is what's interesting because you've got Martinelli for Arsenal. City don't really have like a nailed-on starter there. Alvarez is the best player of the three, of him, Doku, and Grealish, but he doesn't play on the left. It tends to be Doku, and Martinelli's better than him. And then Haaland versus Havertz. There's a lot to like about Kai Havertz as a false nine, but Erling Haaland is the better player. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are Manchester City players to 4 for Arsenal. And I think that's about right. Now, you could make a case for Declan Rice, but it would be over Bernardo Silva. Do you think Declan Rice is a better footballer than Bernardo Silva? If you do, fair enough, you're wrong, but it would still be 6-5 to Manchester City. And if we factor in the manager, it will always be Pep over Arteta. Pep would be the manager. So of the 12 positions involved, it would be 8-4 to Manchester City. Now, third versus fourth. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Two brilliant goalkeepers here, but Alisson is the best goalkeeper in the world, so it's going to be him. Trent versus Cash isn't a competition, it's Trent. Trent is also better than Konza. Konate is better than Konza and Diego Carlos. And Van Dijk is clearly better than Pau Torres. But at left back, I'm going to go Ian Maatsen, because I'm not overly keen on the Liverpool left back options. Now, in midfield, I think I'm going to go Kamara as the 6, and then Onana next to him, with McAllister as the 10 over, what's his name? John McGinn. Szoboszlai on the left, no question, over Ramsey. Salah on the right, no question, over Bailey. And Watkins up front. So that is Alisson, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk, Maatsen, Kamara, Onana, Salah, Alexis, Szoboszlai behind Watkins. Now, Arne Slot remains unproven, therefore the manager has to be Unai Emery. So of the 12 positions that we're picking, Liverpool have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Aston Villa have 5. Maatsen, Kamara, Onana, Watkins, and Emery. 5th versus 6th then gives us Spurs against Chelsea. Now, we'll start with the manager here. It's clearly Ange. Goalkeeper is Vicario. Right back is really interesting. Reece James can't stay fit. He is a better player than Pedro Porro, but he's never fit. I'm still going to give it to James, but it's closer than people would think. And the fact that James isn't fit all the time, it is closer than people think. Left back, it's a Doiji, and it's not close. Centre back now is interesting. It's definitely Romero over the likes of Disasi, Tosin. Fofana, when fit, would make that interesting, but it's definitely Romero. Left centre back is interesting, though. You've got Van de Ven versus Levi Colwill, I would guess. Van de Ven is quicker, but Colwill's better in the air, better on the ball, and probably a more measured player. Van de Ven is a much better 1v1 defender because of his pace, but I think I'm going to go Colwill. Now, midfield. Chelsea have the better individuals, but their pairing doesn't work. But we are just picking largely based on individuals here. So, Caicedo over Bissouma, and Enzo over Pape Matar Sarr. I'm going to guess that the Chelsea 10 is going to be Dewsbury Hall to begin the season. And Maddison's better than him. But Nkunku goes left. Palmer obviously on the right. And Son is the striker. Now, if Spurs buy a striker and Son goes back to the left, depending on who that striker is, obviously, if it's Solanke, if it's Tony, they're better than any Chelsea striker currently, and Son's a better winger than Nkunku. Spurs have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means Chelsea also have 6. So that is a split. Chelsea have more players in the 11, but Spurs have the better manager. So of the 12, it's 6-6. Newcastle versus Manchester United, 7-8. Etihad is a better manager than Ten Hag. That's not even close. Now, I would rather have Nick Pope than Onana, without question. Right back. Because it's currently Trippier, it's Trippier versus Dalot, and that's Dalot by a country mile. Shaw is better than Dan Burn, but Botman is better than Martinez. And I think right now, at this moment in time, Schär is better than Lenny Yoro, but you would rather have Lenny Yoro. But I'm still going to put Schär in because right now he's better than Lenny Yoro. Now, that will change within 12 months. He's declining. Yoro's only going to get better. But for now, that's what we've got. The 9, we'll work backwards on this. The 9 is Isak, without doubt. Left wing is Rashford against Gordon. Now, Gordon had a better season last year. But you'd be a very foolish person to pick Anthony Gordon over Marcus Rashford based on everything we've seen from both. So I think it has to be Rashford. Right wing, Garnacho, I suppose, or Diallo. I think either of them I would pick over Almiron, being completely honest. I'll go Garnacho because I think it will be him when everybody's fitting back. Now midfield is where it's difficult because outside of Guimaraes and Fernandes, they're both in. The two Brunos are in. There's no third midfielder that you'd look at and think, have to have him in. The best player is probably Sandro Tonali. So I think you just go Sandro Tonali. So Bruno F, Bruno G, and Tonali. So Newcastle have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Toon have 7. United have 5. United's weakest point is probably their manager. Now on to the one that sparked this, which is Crystal Palace and West Ham. I think Glasner is the better manager between him and Lopetegui, so I'm going to go Glasner. Goalkeepers, a coin toss. Areola is very good. Henderson can be very good. I would lean Areola, though. Right back would be Munez. I think left back is Mitchell. Guehi's definitely one of the centre-backs. The question is, who's the other one? Is it Anderson? Is it Kilman? Now, if we just line them up on which side they play on, it would actually be Guehi over Kilman, in which case it's Anderson over either Zuma or Mavropanos. But I'm going to be nice here and I'm going to put Max Kilman in. Because he is the second best centre-back, I think, of the group. And I quite like the look of that back four. Midfield. It's Doucouré and it's Wharton, and it's not a contest. It's not a competition. There's not a conversation to be had. It is Doucouré and it is Adam Wharton. No question, they're the two best midfield players between these clubs. Now, Lucas Paqueta has not been banned yet, so he will be our 10. Kudus will be on the right. Eze will be on the left. And Bowen will be our striker. While moves have not been completed yet, that's the 11. Areola, Munez, Guehi, Kilman, Mitchell, Doucouré and Wharton, Kudus, Paqueta, Eze, and Bowen. Now, if Elise was still a Palace, it would be him on the right instead of Kudus. Palace have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. It's 7-5 to Palace. And it would have been 8-5, 8-4 rather, if Elise was still there. Now, you could argue that Kudus would play on the left. Kudus versus Eze. As a winger, you'd probably go Kudus. Kudus versus Paqueta, Eze versus Paqueta, I would lean Paqueta, but again, he could be facing a big ban, so by process of him getting banned, Eze will be back in. Either way, I do think that Palace team, if they'd kept Elise, really did have the potential to not only finish above West Ham, but to potentially catch one or two of the teams above that as well. But yeah, Areola, Munez, Guehi, Kilman, Mitchell, Doucouré, Wharton, Kudus, Paqueta, Eze, Bowen, Glasner as the manager. I actually don't think there's anywhere you can really debate. West Ham may upgrade their fullback positions this summer, in which case that could change. But for now, that's what I've got. That's what I'm going with, and that's what I'm happy with. So we'll go to break now. Just to recap, 1 versus 2, City versus Arsenal. Pep is the manager. Ederson, White, Saliba, Ake, Guardiola, Rodri and Bernardo, Saka, KDB, Martinelli, Haaland. 8-4 in favour of Man City. Emery is the manager of 3v4, which is Liverpool versus Villa. Alisson, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk, Maatsen, Kamara, Onana, Salah, McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Watkins, 7-5 to Liverpool. 5 versus 6 was Spurs versus Chelsea. Ange is the manager. Vicario, James, Romero, Colwell, Adoiji, Caicedo, Enzo, Palmer, Maddison, Nkunku, and Heung-min Son. That is 6-6. 7-8, Newcastle against Manchester United. Howe is the manager. Pope, Delot, Schär, Botman, and Shaw. Tonali and Bruno is a double pivot. Bruno Fernandes is the 10. Garnacho right, Rashford left. Isak as the 9. And then, so that's 7-5 to Newcastle. And then 9v10, West Ham versus Crystal Palace. Glasner is the manager. Areola is the goalkeeper. Menez, Guehi, Kilman, Mitchell. Doucouré and Wharton. Kudus, Paqueta, Eze, and Jared Bowen. That is the only one where the team who finished lower has more people in the combined 11 plus manager. Otherwise, it has been first over second, third over fifth, third over fourth, fifth and sixth was a draw, seventh over eighth, but 10th over 9th. And we'll be back after the break for 11 versus 12 and so on. See you in a sec. Right, welcome back. So, Brighton in 11th, Bournemouth in 12th. The manager will be Iraola. Not enough known yet about Huzler and how he does in the Premier League. So we're going to go with Iraola, who was outstanding last year and is an excellent manager. Verbruggen, undeniably the goalkeeper, not keen on the current situation of Bournemouth in goal. Left back is Estupiñán, but it is close. Well, not close. It was close last year because Estupiñán was injured a lot, but Estupiñán is better. Kirkes is excellent, but Estupiñán is probably the best left back in the league from an attacking point of view. If you're looking for an attacking left back, Estupiñán is the one to go for. Right back is interesting though, because last year we saw Veltman suffer with injuries and some fall off. Max Aarons is inconsistent. I would lean Veltman, but it's the weakest position I think between the two teams is that left back that right back position. A little bit controversial maybe, but at centre back I'm going with the Bournemouth pair. I'm going Zabarni and I'm going Huijsen. I think we saw a massive fall off from Lewis Dunk last season. Now, if he's played in a 3 this year in the middle of it, they'll be able to protect him a lot more and they might eke another season or 2 out of him, but I think they need to be looking at replacing Lewis Dunk now. Midfield. I think it's Weaver and Baliba. I think it's Weaver just a notch above Tyler Adams. And I love Baliba. I think he is going to be one of the breakout stars this coming season. On the wings, Mitoma unquestionably on the left over, well, any of the Bournemouth options really. On the right, I think it's definitely one of the Brighton options, Minta or Adingra over Semenyo. I'm not sure which of them it's going to be, but I'm going to say Minta. just because of how well he's been doing in pre-season. I think he will get the nod. In the number 10 position, Pascal Grouse is now gone, so I'm curious to see who Brighton will play in that role. It could be Solly March, but for this team, Alex Scott of Bournemouth is in. And then the 9 is interesting, because you've got Dominic Solanke at Bournemouth, who obviously had a tremendous season last year. He may well leave, so he may not be in this conversation for much longer, but he did have a tremendous season last year. He scored 21 goals in 42 games. The first time he really looked like a Premier League number 9. But João Pedro scored 20 in 40 for Brighton. And I think as an all-round player is a better player than Solanke. And if I was Spurs and I thought they might let him go, I'd probably be testing Brighton's resolve on Pedro before I'd try for Solanke. And if the price is 65 million, I'd rather spend it on 22-year-old João Pedro, who has, I think, a huge amount of potential. I'm going to pick João Pedro as my 9. So, Bournemouth have 1, 2, 3, 4. And Brighton have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I think that's right. I do think Brighton underachieved last year. I also think when you start to look at depth, Brighton in midfield and in attack, significantly stronger. Like Brighton, you look at these teams here and consider the fact that Adingra is not in. Enciso is not in. You've got Evan Ferguson not in. I'm sure Brighton fans would make the case for Van Hecke over Zabarni. It's not a case I'd be quickly wanting to listen to. I think Zabarni's just a better defender. I think last season, considering how poor the start was for Bournemouth, the fact that they only conceded 5 goals more for Brighton, when Bournemouth went in and people were saying they were a relegation contender and Brighton were considered a European contender, I think that's a lot of that is because Zabarni was excellent last year. And again, very young left back, rotating cast at left centre back. Aaron's in at right back, new to the club, injured for a little while. I'm going to go Zabarni over him, and Huijsen I'd pick over most because I just think he's special. 13 versus 14 then throws up Fulham against Wolves. This is probably going to be the most boring of the lot. There's some really exciting players, but some less exciting players as well. The manager is Marco Silva. Goalkeeper is Bernd Leno. Right back. Not hugely keen on either, but I'm going to go Semedo. Centre backs. Wolves just lost their best centre back. So did Fulham. The pairing would have been Tosin and Kilman. It wouldn't have been a conversation. That would have just been it. Without them, I think it's Santiago Bueno and Calvin Bassey. Not a pairing I'd be overly thrilled with, but a pairing with potential. Left back is the biggest debate, I think. Aït-Nouri versus Robinson. Robinson has a lot of fans because of his style of play. I think he's too inconsistent. I think his final third production comes and goes. Defensively, I think he has too many lapses. I think Aït-Nouri is younger and better, and the gap is only going to widen, so I'm going to go with Aït-Nouri. In midfield, João Palhinha would have walked in. It would have been probably João Palhinha and João Gomes. Now that Palhinha is gone and hasn't yet been replaced, it's got to be Lemina and João Gomes. Wide positions, Neto on the right. I'm going to go Cunha as the 10 and Emile Smith-Rowe off the left. And up front, Rodrigo Muniz, who I think is a massive talent. So, Fulham, I'm counting the team whose manager I picked first. That's why I went with Bournemouth first last time and Fulham this time. Silva makes 1, Leno makes 2, Bassi makes 3, Smith-Rowe makes 4, Muniz makes 5, which means Fulham have 5 and Wolves have 7. Now, as I said, if João Palhinha hadn't left, he would be in over Lamina, which would have made it 6-6, and it's one centre-back from each team as it would have been. And I think that's about right. They finished a point apart last season. I think they're very evenly matched. They both won 13 games. I think it's about right. 15 versus 16. Everton versus Brentford. It's a close call on the managers. It is a close call on the managers. They're both very good. They both get a lot out of their players. I would lean Sean Dyche, though. Now, that's not to say I don't think Thomas Frank might do better further up the league than Sean Dyche, but I'd love to see what Sean Dyche could do with real backing. And if he was willing to accept more guidance on recruitment and stuff like that, I think Sean Dyche could actually do very well. Pickford versus Flecken is going to be Pickford without a doubt. I'm going to pick Hickey over Patterson at right back. And I'm going to pick Henry over Michaelenko at left back. But the two centre-backs will come from Everton. Former Brentford player James Tarkowski and Jared Brandwaite. I don't know where O'Brien is going to play yet or what the situation is going to be. I think he's got the potential to get in, but for now, that's what we're going with. Midfield. The Brentford midfield, with Onana gone, this is the big thing here. They just lost Onana. So, Janelt is definitely in. I think I would have gone Onana and Janelt. Now I'm going to go Norgard and Janelt. There's no debate up front. It's Ivan Toney. I think the wingers, you've got to go in Mbomo. And I think McNeil. And then in the 10, I'm going to go Illiman and Jai. That will be over Jensen, say, the more attacking of the Brentford midfielders. So Everton, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this ends up 6 apiece. Brentford gets 6. And Everton gets 6. And again, I think that's quite fair. I think they're very evenly matched. I don't think there's a whole lot between them. Now, last season, Everton definitely had the better year, especially when you factor in the points deduction. They would have actually finished in 12th, but they would have gotten wiped out by Brighton if we were doing them versus Brighton here. But I do think it's quite close. Obviously, Bournemouth or Brentford last year, missing Tony for most of the year, missing Henry most of the year. Hickey missed a bunch of games. Brentford got destroyed with injuries last year, so I would say that's very close. Now it gets a little bit tricky because it's 17 versus 18, which means it's Nottingham Forest versus Leicester City. And Leicester are back in the division after a year in the Championship. Right. Goalkeeper. I'm not overly keen on any of the goalkeepers here from Forest. I did like what I saw of Hermansen last year, so I'm going to go with him as my goalkeeper. Fullbacks, I'm going to go Omabama Deli and James Justin as the two best fullbacks between the two clubs. Centre-back, Milenkovic and Murillo. I don't think it's debatable, really. Midfield, I would still pick Wilfred Ndidi over Sangaré. Even with his injuries, I'd still pick Ndidi. Next to him will be Daniil. The 10 has to be Gibbs White. Right wing, I mean, I'm not sure who's going to play on the wings for Forest is the thing. I think it might be Hudson-Odoi and Anderson, but it could be Hudson-Odoi and Elanga. It could be Elanga and Anderson. Let's just say it's Elanga on the right and Hudson-Odoi on the left, because they were the ones that were there last year. I think Hudson-Odoi is definitely in. Elanga versus Fatua is interesting. Fatua's really, really good. He's young. He's still a little bit raw. He still makes some bad decisions, but when he's on and when he explodes into life, he's really, really good. But Elanga quietly had a very good season last year. And loads of people have just overlooked how efficient he was. And he's still only 22, so he's only 2 years older. He scored 5 goals in 36 games. Fatua got 6 in 40, but in the championship. I'm going to go with Elanga, proven Premier League quality, which Fatua is not right now. And then the 9, it's still Vardy. Like, Awoniyi's good. Wood has his moments, but it's still Vardy. It still is Vardy. The manager, I forgot the manager. It's Steve Cooper. Steve Cooper is a better manager than Nuno. So Leicester have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Forest have 7. And then finally, we get to 19 versus 20. So it's McKenna versus Russell Martin. It's McKenna. It will be McKenna over a lot of these. Goalkeeper. Now, he is injured at the moment, but Basuna is better than Muric, so I'm going with him. Walker Peters is the best right back by a country mile. Centre backs, we're going to go Harwood Bellis and Greaves. And then left back, there isn't really. I'm not overly keen on Ryan Manning, but I think I do really like Leif Davis. Leif Davis, so I'm going to go with him on the left. So Basuna, Walker Peters, Howard Bellis, Greaves, and Davis. Midfield is difficult because Ipswich haven't yet improved their midfield, whereas Southampton had a good midfield to begin with. So I'm going to go... I'm definitely going to go Flynn Downs. I think I'll go Will Smallbone. I prefer Shea Charles, but I think it will be Smallbone. And then Alcaraz is the 10. Now on the wings, it's definitely going to be Mari Hutchinson. Play him on the right. Not sure yet who the left winger for them is going to be, or the left sided attacking forward, or whatever, or attacking midfielder, or whatever way he wants to line it up. But we're doing 4-2-3-1 for all of these. So from Southampton, I'm inclined to go Sekou Mara, even though I think Suleiman is more talented. I'm not sure he's ingratiated himself to the manager as yet. So Sekou Mara. And then up front, Liam Delap is not proven in the Premier League and hasn't performed at the same level as Adam Armstrong in the Championship. But Armstrong also isn't proven in the Premier League, despite having been in the Premier League before. He did not do well. He didn't do particularly well at Newcastle when he was there, and he was quite poor for Southampton. So I'm inclined to just go Ben Brereton Diaz, because I think he is the best of the three players here, Delap, Brereton Diaz, and Armstrong. So I'm going to go with him. So Ipswich get 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. And Southampton get 8. Now, obviously that doesn't really sync up with what we saw last year, but Southampton have a lot of Premier League proven players, and they get Alcaraz back. They've added Brereton Diaz. I think it's right. However, I do think McKenna's that good that he can overcome a lot of the talent disparity. So, to wrap up part 2, 11 v 12 was Brighton Bournemouth. Irola's the manager. Verbruggen, Veltman, Zabani, Huysen, Estupinan, Leifer and Baliba, Minta, Scott, Matoma, João Pedro up front. 8-4 Brighton over Bournemouth. 13 versus 14 was Wolves versus Fulham. Silva's the manager. Leno, Semedo, Bueno, Bassi, Nouri, Lamina, João Gomes, Neto, Cunha, Emile Smith-Rowe, and Rodrigo Muniz. 7-5 Wolves over Fulham. We'll have a look at these again, I think, at the end of the season. Teams will have obviously done a lot more business, I think, by then. 15-16 is Everton and Brentford. Dyche is the manager. Pickford, Hickey, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Henry, Norgard and Janelt, Mbomo, Njai, McNeil, Ivan Toney. It's 6-6. 17 versus 18. Forest against Leicester. Steve Cooper's the manager. Hermanson, Omabama Deli, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Justin. Ndidi and Danilo. Elanga, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, and Vardy. 7-5 for Nottingham Forest over Leicester. And then finally, Ipswich versus Southampton. McKenna is the manager. Basunu. Now, with him being out, Muric is the better goalkeeper when it's him versus McCarthy. So there is that. But Basunu, Walker-Peters, Harwood Bellis, Greaves, and Davis. Downs and Smallbone, Hutchinson, Alcaraz, Mara, Brereton Diaz, 8-4 Southampton over Ipswich. That is one of two where the lower ranked team had more than the higher ranked team. It's also only one of two where the score was 8-4, the other one being City versus Arsenal. So there we go. Back after the break. Right, welcome back. Really good piece on the BBC website written by Neil Johnston about Jefferson Lewis, who is a 45-year-old football journeyman who made his debut in 1996, has had 51 transfers in his career, and is still going strong. So give that a read when you get a chance. We had some very sad news in the football world yesterday. So Tommy Cassidy, this actually might have been today. Tommy Cassidy, former Northern Ireland and Newcastle United midfielder who won 24 caps and was part of their squad in the 1982 World Cup, playing in the famous 1-0 win over Spain, has passed away at the age of 73. So thoughts and condolences go to his family. And Craig Shakespeare, former Leicester manager who had been undergoing treatment for cancer, he has passed away at the age of just 60. He worked for West Brom, Hull, Everton, Watford, Villa and Norwich. He is obviously working with Dean Smith up until recently. He was manager of Leicester after Ranieri left. He had a spell in the England setup, I believe, as part of Sam Allardyce's backroom staff. He has passed away at just 60 years of age, which is a genuine tragedy. Everything else seems kind of insignificant, doesn't it, when people have passed away? But Manchester United have received a second bid from Fulham, understood to be in the region of 20 million for Scott McTominay. I think that's a fair price. I do think it's a fair price. I thought he was very, very important to United last season, but he is limited. He's 27. I think it's a decent move for Fulham. I'd be curious, is it him and Andre? Is that the midfield pairing they're hoping to link up? Is the Andre deal going to happen, or what's the situation there? That would not change the midfield pairing I had there. It would still be Lamina and João Gomes, even if McTominay lands. But if Andre lands, I'd be inclined to say João Gomes and Andre, even though neither of them are a natural defensive midfielder. Andre does sit in and kind of dictate play, and that would allow Gomes to sort of roam and do what he does, breaking play up and things like that. So that could be the pairing, but it's neither here nor there, really. Conor Gallagher has been told he would not be a regular starter under Enzo Maresca with the Italians' possession-based approach. Another report suggests that he has been told he will not be training with the first team if he does not accept the move to Atletico Madrid. Atletico have a bid of 33 million, which has been accepted. Gallagher has 1 year left in his deal. There had been some thoughts that maybe he might try and see out his contract and go next summer. I think the way Chelsea have treated him and Chalobah and Mason Mount last season is a disgrace. Chelsea don't care about footballers, but the thing is, they never have. You can go back to the early days of the Roman era when two players approached the club and told them they were struggling with substance abuse problems. These were two players that Chelsea didn't want at the club anymore. One they had signed, I believe, on a free, and one they had bought for significant money from an Italian club. Neither player had worked out, and Chelsea wanted them gone. And when these players came and approached the club and said, this is what the situation is, rather than help the players, get them into a program, rehabilitate them, and then try and sell them, Chelsea reported them or gave a tip-off to the Premier League, who then subsequently drug-tested both players and banned both players. Chelsea used that as a reason to terminate their contracts and pursue lawsuits against those players. And those players are Adrian Mutu and Mark Bosnich. And Chelsea turned both of them in when they were approached for help. That's the type of club Chelsea are. It's who they've been for 20 plus years. The only players that they've ever cared about are the players that got real cozy with Roman Abramovich. John Terry, Frank Lampard, and Didier Drogba. Three of the most entitled players the Premier League has ever seen, particularly John Terry. And if you don't understand how entitled he is, go and listen to the interview he did where he talked about how when Villas-Boas took over, he wanted to make it clear to the entire squad that everybody was equal. So he put the senior players sitting in economy and the academy players in first class. And John Terry threw a tantrum and held the plane up and said the plane wouldn't be leaving unless he got to go and sit in first class. Because that's who John Terry is. That's who Chelsea Football Club are. Philippe Clement has signed a contract extension at Rangers that will keep him tied to the Ibrox club until the summer of 2028. Gary Neville has bought Peter Lamb's stake in Salford City to pave the way for a new strategic partner. Obviously, they had milked as much money as they could out of Lim, who owns Valencia and is despised there. So Neville has bought his share out, and you would imagine now that this share becomes available for someone else to buy in and help fund this project as they try and financially dope this club into the Premier League. That's pretty much it. So we'll just do the gossip. West Ham are closing in on the double signing of Crescencio Somerville and Nicholas Fulkrug. Neither of them would get into our combined 11 that we did earlier. Arsenal, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid are interested in Adrian Rabiot. I would highly doubt it. This sounds like his mother leaking things to try and garner interest because it seems the United move has gone cold. Aston Villa have reached a deal for Romelu Lukaku, but he only wants to join Napoli. That's not true. That is completely made up nonsense. West Ham have agreed personal terms with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but have yet to agree a fee with Manchester United, who want 18 million rather than the 10 million being offered. Now, it's Sky Sports Germany, so high chance of spoofing. Fulham are in advanced talks to sign Jorge Cuenca for £7 million. He's a decent centre-back. He is. He's good. He can play left-back as well. I do like him. I think potentially he's better than Bassi. Napoli have made an offer of 12 million euros for Billy Gilmore and Napoli are waiting to make an offer when player leaves of 12 million. That won't be enough to get Gilmore. You're going to have to offer more. Arsenal are close to a 25 million deal for Mikel Moreno. I think that one's definitely going to happen. Roma have agreed a deal with Girona to sign Artem Dovbek for 29 million, with AC Milan interested in signing Tammy Abraham from Roma. I'd rather have Tammy Abraham personally, but Dovbek had an amazing season last year. Stuttgart will withdraw their interest in Dennis Undav and look at new targets soon if they can't reach a deal with Brighton. Newcastle in advanced talks with Sheffield United to sign 20-year-old Danish striker William Asula for an initial fee of 10 million. I think that's a really clever deal. I think he's got a lot of potential. Leipzig will reject a second bid from Barcelona for Dani Olmo. Will they? Maybe. Who knows? Bristol, Stoke and Birmingham are interested in Burnley's Irish defender Luke McNally. He's too good for League One, but Birmingham are going to spend some money, so maybe he does go there. I think Bristol's the best move for him. Stoke want Blackburn's 26-year-old English midfielder Lewis Travis, a good defensive midfielder. Nottingham Forest are not looking to cash in on Morgan Gibbs-White despite interest from Newcastle, Arsenal, Aston Villa and Chelsea. He doesn't fit how Newcastle play. He doesn't fit in the Arsenal team. I do think he'd be a great number 10 for Villa, playing behind Watkins with potentially Bailey on the right and Ramsey on the left. I do think that works. The don't see the fit with him really at Chelsea. He could play as a 10, but they've already got a bunch of in-house options. Manchester City's English midfielder Jacob Wright has agreed a loan move to Peterborough, and that is it, folks. That's me for the week. I'm not going to be here Monday because it's a bank holiday. I have an appointment on Tuesday, so it will be Wednesday before I'm back. So enjoy your weekend, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you in the middle of next week. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.